never slow up, no I don't take sh**. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
Hello YouTube, right, today I'm going to be reacting to a prison in Germany. It's going to be kind of a long reaction, but I'm just going to react to it and see what happens here. So let's get into it.
If you're on the outside.
Yeah, first you earn a bit of money to live on, and it helps take your mind off things. No question. Definitely gives you something.
The balance between education and punishment. Juvenile prisons are often where the future course is set. Is this where criminal careers end, or where they really start?
Of course the drugs played their part. I was always aggressive.
Prison doctors on duty non-stop. Open tuberculosis, hepatitis, or high blood pressure. An entire clinic exclusively for prison inmates.
They can move around freely here in the corridor and are not seen in public with handcuffs on.
Wittlich in Rheinland-Pfalz. Every Thursday, this bus arrives at the correctional facility. On board are the inmates from other prisons who have now been transferred here, or prisoners returning from a court appearance. Wittlich Prison is part of a giant complex covering a total area the size of 25 football pitches. Besides the men's jail, there's another penal facility here, the Juvenile Prison, with around 150 male inmates. One of the oldest young offenders institutions in Europe.
So it's a prison within a prison. Bowling Green has something like that. It has a little housing unit that was for juveniles, but this is like a whole section here.
Europe. There's also an entire hospital exclusively for the prisoners. Numerous working and vocational training facilities, and even a school for prospective prison officers.
Wow.
An isolated world of incarceration.
Morning.
6 a.m. On Wing 4 of the men's prison, the day begins with unlocking what's known here as the living check. A quick look into the detention rooms, as cells are called today, so the officers can make sure the prisoners are safe and well.
It does happen, though not very often, that someone commits suicide and you're never prepared for that.
The inmates here are made up of men serving sentences of up to 8 years. One of the prison veterans here is Shosh. The 58-year-old has spent more than half his life locked up in various jails.
It's got a nice cell. A big window. To his room. I've never seen that in any prisons in Missouri. The closest I've seen is the walls where they have these big windows, but they's like 20 feet from you, the cell, you know.
So first I'll have a cup of coffee and then I'll watch the news.
One of the few comforts of prison life is being allowed to make your own coffee or tea in your detention room. That is, assuming you have some.
Look at this.
By pushing a button, the inmates can show that they need hot water. This is always brought around half an hour after wake-up by an inmate.
Yeah, you know, in the States, at least in Missouri and other places I've heard of, they don't bring hot water around to you. You got a sink in the room, or at the most you go down. You know, if you're in a dorm, you go to the inn and get water.
Mate under the supervision of a prison officer. As soon as an officer unlocks the detention room, it's indicated here and in the wing office. so all other officers know where their colleague currently is. A precautionary measure.
See you later, okay?
All right.
The size of the detention rooms is just 10 square meters. Not much space for furniture or belongings.
10 square meters. That's more than a lot of prisons in the U.S.
Here you can see everything's empty. Then there's the cupboard where you can keep your personal things. Tobacco, coffee, games, dishes, plates. And that's all you've got, isn't it? And here's the toilet.
At least, it's behind its own door.
Yeah, it's got its own room.
And here you can do a few exercises. I do my push-ups here like this. Put my hands on the mattress like this. Then I go down, sets of 10 or 20, depending on how I feel.
And it's a single-man cell. I would love that, you know. He's got everything he needs in there. TV, bed, single man, and it's not like a bunk bed. It's like it's a good-sized bed there. I mean, it's small for the free world, but it's pretty big for the prison.
Like all other inmates, he simply has to make the most of his situation and come to terms with the cramped conditions. The prison building is divided up into several wings. 3 officers are responsible for each one. A wing consists of 3 corridors and a total of 80 detention rooms, which are supervised from a central wing office. The officers take care of lockup and unlocking, checks, and lots of other security-relevant matters. That includes assembling the prisoners to move them out to their workplaces.
I'm assuming they call them detention rooms because being politically correct, I guess, don't want to call them cells anymore. You know, it's just like I've been hearing lately that people getting out of prison are not ex-cons or returning citizens.
Morning.
For Matthias, it's also time to go to work.
All right, mate.
Like many of his fellow inmates, it's not his first time in prison. His workplace is in a different building in the prison complex. He and his 30 colleagues work in the prison laundry. Before each shift, the officers make sure that no inmates have smuggled anything in. Then, they all go to get changed.
It's pretty much like food service here in the United States, at least the prisons I've been in. You go in, they pat you down, and then they strip search you, and then you dress out into food service clothes. And you do the same when you're leaving, you know, they strip you out. All that stuff, you know. I got so tired of it.
They do all the laundry for all the prisons in Rhineland-Pfalz.
Well, this is laundry.
As well as for hospitals and other external companies and institutions. 20 to 30 inmates work each shift, watched over by 2 guards. By working here, the inmates can also earn money and will get around 220 euros at the end of the month.
Just sitting in the cell.
220 euros a month. What would that be? 100 something bucks?
Cell brooding? I did that for a few years, and this is definitely better. First of all, you can earn some money, and it takes your mind off things.
Stay
For me,
busy.
it's really important that my family doesn't have to send me any money.
Right.
The inmate
That's it. You know, he just said it. Staying busy in prison, that's very important. You don't want your mind wandering, thinking about the free world and stuff. You'll go crazy, you know. That's why the saying is, do time, don't let time do you. So he's right, you know. You stay busy, stay focused on, keep your mind busy, and your body busy. And he said that his people doesn't have to send him any money because he's making enough. I think he's making more than they make in laundry around here, at least in Missouri.
Inmates are only allowed to spend about half of what they earn to buy food or cigarettes. The rest goes into an account that's managed by the prison. While serving their term, inmates themselves are only allowed to make withdrawals after an application to do so has been approved. The laundry bosses are members of the prison staff. They have to make sure the work is of the right quality and that all security standards are maintained. With deliveries coming and going on a daily basis, there's also a great temptation to smuggle things in or out. Inmates could easily try to...
Yeah. When I worked in laundry in Farmington, and we did laundry for like 7 different hospitals as well as for the prison, they was always checking and make sure there was nothing getting smuggled in. You know, stuff came in all the time. You know, people would find things, you know, money, just different things, and clothes sometimes.
To hide under these mountains of laundry in an attempt to escape.
There's always that risk, but we check every time to make sure they're all still there. So basically, no laundry goes out until we've made sure that all the inmates are still present.
He's talking about that, making sure nobody's escaping. I don't know if a lot of you guys know this or not, but in Germany, you won't get charged for escaping as long as you don't hurt anybody or do serious damage to buildings. I think it's Germany and some Norway or someplace like that they say it's the natural human instinct to try to escape captivity, so they won't charge you for it. It's kind of strange, you know.
All those bringing or collecting laundry are also checked thoroughly. The prison also has its own bakery. Here, the inmates bake the bread for all the detention centers in Rhineland-Pfalz. Those working here are normally beginners who are trained and supervised by 2 master bakers. Anyone needing a knife for their work has to sign for it.
When I worked at food service in South Central Correctional Center in Lincoln, Missouri, the knives were in. They would take the knives out. They had to mark it off and stuff. It was out of the room. And they'd take it to the prep room where everything was cut. And they had these cables that they would lock them to. So, you know, you couldn't hide them or do anything with them. They was on these cables that was attached to counters, these metal counters.
This knife is classified as a dangerous tool here, so he has to sign to confirm he's taken it. We know where the knife is and who's got it, and we countersign when he brings it back at the end of the day.
Lots of things the inmates use here would make good weapons. The supervisors, however, are always unarmed. That's what the security regulations stipulate. That's why in the bakery, only trustworthy inmates are allowed to work with knives. If they need help quickly, the staff use their personal emergency devices, or PED for short. Every officer carries such a device on them at all times.
That's the PED, and that's the alarm cord. If it's pulled off, it sets the alarm off. Or up here, the red button, that's a pressure alarm. Then there's the position alarm. If the thing lies on its side for 5 seconds, it triggers the alarm.
It's like the radios the guards have nowadays. As long as they're upright, you know, like when they're walking or whatever, nothing happens. But if they set them on a desk or the guard was to fall, you know, be on the ground, these things, they'd set them off. You know, there's a sensor in there, and they'd go off, and every guard in the prison will come running, I'm telling you. everyone. And this here doesn't look like a radio. It's just like an alarm thing.
You've always got to be in an upright position. If you're lying down somewhere and can't press the button, the alarm goes off automatically.
To be allowed to work in prison, each inmate first has to apply to the prison governor, who will then check the prisoner's file. If the applicant is classified as fit for work,
And they don't really do it like that here. I know in the max prisons, like in South Central Correctional Center and a few others, it's mandatory that you do 90 days in food service, and they don't care if you're qualified or not. They stick you in there. You know, you're going to food service for 90 days, whether you like it or not. If you don't like it and you don't go, they put you in the hole. And here they're making sure these guys are qualified and everything else. Hopefully that means better food for them over there.
work, the next step is to check which tasks they could be suited to and where workers are needed. This inmate has been working here for a few months. Like many others, he's happy that this job is preparing him for life outside prison walls.
There's a normal work structure here, just like there is outside, and it definitely gives you something.
Work is not compulsory in the modern prison system. All those who do work do so voluntarily.
Yeah, in Missouri, it's mandatory you have a job somewhere. You know, unless you're disabled, you have to be working somewhere. Or you have some written thing that says you can't work, you know, you're going to work. You know, when your 90 days in food service is up, they'll either keep you there or you can start looking for another job. But you got to find a job. I think the exception is those in school.
In the adjacent administration building, the prison management convenes. Every day, they plan all the important tasks and try to find solutions to problems. Today, they're discussing how to accommodate inmates from another prison on short notice, even though there isn't actually any room.
It means, of course, that because we're already exceeding capacity by 5 in our current situation, we'll be over the limit by 50 inmates on the weekend.
In such cases, cells have to be shared, which often leads to trouble. To keep things under control within the prison walls, the management needs to be very sensitive.
We're dealing with people here who have plenty of time to think of ways to take advantage of the system. We bring in a rule and are basically already thinking, how will they try to get around this? And that makes it interesting because every day there's a new challenge and our job is trying to solve small or even larger problems all day long.
Yeah, he's right. You know, the prisoners are always trying to think of ways to get around new rules and stuff. But, you know, that meeting they had, I can't speak for the one that one there in Germany, but I always feel like when they put their heads together in an American prison, especially one in Missouri, I always feel that they're trying to come up with ways to divide the prison population because they don't like prisoners to be united, you know. They like them to be divided.
Back to Section 4. Josh doesn't do prison work, but spends the day in his cell. He has a total of 32 years in prison behind him. Burglary, theft, assault, receiving stolen goods, and pimping. Outside.
So he's playing video games. When I was in prison, I was writing this guy in a German prison. He's talking about they could have DVDs and video games and in their cells, and that's never been allowed over here. Potosi had video games that you can play in the gym, and video games you could play in the wing, but you couldn't have them in your cell. When Matt Blunt became governor, he took all that away because he said they was living in too much comfort, and so he took all that away. As well as any movie rated R or above.
It was always a life in the fast lane, but each time the journey always ended behind bars.
Yes, sometimes in, sometimes out. 2, 3 years, 5 years, 4 years. It all adds up gradually, so that you don't really notice the time passing.
The last time Schorsch was out, he got married. But then he started drinking heavily and his wife left him. He then committed a robbery and ended up back in prison.
I just lost my grip on life. When I was with my wife, I had everything. Then we split up and I drifted back into the old circles with drugs and all the rest of it. And so I have to say that prison has more or less saved my life. There are a few impressions I've written down here. Worldly wisdoms, if you like. Acceptance is the key. Accept your life. Accept what you've got and make the best of it. Live so that you're happy. That's all that matters. You've got to keep your mind occupied and be convinced of what you say and do.
The complex also includes a juvenile prison with 150 inmates. It dates back to the Kaiser's reign and is one of the oldest juvenile detention centers in Europe.
Hello, get down. It's unlock time.
Yeah, I'm coming. Just a minute, miss.
Drug-related offenses.
Mainly assault, drunk and disorderly, drunk driving and drugs offenses. I've calmed down a bit. I think before I do something now. It's definitely helped. I'm different than I used to be. Of course, the drugs played their part. I was always aggressive and things like that. Yes, dealing with frustration better. Or if you've had a drug problem, learning about the problems of relapsing. And finding out the reasons why things got so bad.
I think what happened yesterday might be a good example of this. We could mention that as one such case. Remember? When it all kicked off? Most of them have their days structured by their smartphones and TVs only. At unlock time, you can often see that they're only interested in the TV. But we try to counter that as far as we can, with group activities and sports, and also by having meals together, just to give them some kind of structure. You've got to look and see what's in there. If it's obviously photographic paper, it's very unlikely that it's been soaked in drugs.
I've been around a few years and have been in a couple of prisons. The food makes a big difference. If the food's no good, especially when you're working, I've often felt like throwing the stuff.
It looks like it might be slightly better than what we got over here.
Out of the door. But compared to other prisons, this place has some of the best food.
Alright, YouTube, there was more to that video, but cutting it off right here. We're gonna have we had a time doing this one, so if the audio is off a little bit, I apologize for that, and I hope you enjoy my reaction to this, and I'll put a link in for if you want to go and see the full documentary. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye.
We are dreaming in the dark. We are nothing more than dust. Search but you stay lost. We are